definite feeling of negativity, isn't there? There's this definite feeling of, I don't really like the idea of selling at higher prices. So the first trade you can see was a buy trade, but you didn't know what the internals were going to do at that stage. Well, they never improved. The market internals never improved. Well, if that's the case, take a look at where the red line dots are. Where is the level 2 sellable opportunity? So the first trade was a buy, the second trade was a sell, and then there was a scratch because it never extended on either side. It went quiet, didn't it? And then there was a scratch. So that was it. That was your opening range extension pretty much finished. Because either the opening buy sticks, which it didn't, or the opening sell sticks, which it didn't. So in other words, you're trying to now find something a little bit better to work with. At this stage, I can now recognize a couple of nice elements. The value is now bearish. Hold on a second, guys. I'm going to tidy up my long oil. Did anybody join me on a long oil trade, guys, at the low edges? Anybody join me? 106.75 from 106 evens. Reasonable little outcome. Hoping you did. Michael's on the long oil as well. Good stuff. Anybody join me on the short bond? I'm sure you did. At the 28.29 area, I've managed to put it on Ninja Trader as well, guys. Come on, you've got to be doing this stuff, right? Anybody on the short bond? Rennie, good stuff. Michael's on oil. Rennie's on short bond. And that's all I can ask for, guys, is to get a couple of people on board. Black line upticks, which is kind of what we were waiting for. Black line upticks. Volume upticks. And we can sell into this. We're getting 30s, 29s. We got down to 21s. Worst case scenario is stops at break even. And remember, anytime you see these little areas where you've got red inside of an uptrend, just draw a line against them, guys, because these are areas that will block the price. Red, draw a line. These are areas that will block the price. Pretty good. Pretty good. Oil. Well, that's worked out rather sexy for us. We've got all the way up to 107s. That's a $1,000 trade, guys. $1,000 per contract trade. I quite like winning $1,000 winners like that. It has taken us approximately 7 minutes. 7 minutes, Mike, for $1,000. This is like the Wild West in here, guys. Perfect, perfect, perfect. After that squeeze took place, we let it rock and roll. We start picking up the value at the bottom, and my goodness, a quick $1,000 paid into your bank account, just as easy as that, guys. Crazy, 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 crazy. And again, there's a classic example of 3 attempts. We'll come back to this equity in a second, guys. Here's a classic example of 3 attempts. We bought the break at 107. Perfect example of a good trade. Nice profit. Picked up 25 ticks on that trade. Bought it again, picked up another winning, but we saw the value coming in against us. Let it squeeze through, let it squeeze through. Next wholesale price, start it all over again. $1,000. Easy. Easy. Remember, guys, there is a huge, huge, huge advantage to backing off the target a little bit to give yourself that little bit of space to think. Anyway, let's get back to this. Okay, so equities. First trade, buy side, no extension. Second trade, sell side, no extension. Scratch out the trade. Some small profits and a break even. And now start trying to figure out where your trade is, because now you've got what? Well, now you've got an extreme high, which is the previous high there, and now you've got an extreme low, which is now this previous low here. Now you've got to try and think to yourself, okay, Do I want to sell at the highs or do I want to buy at the lows? Because at the moment, I've traded from the inside out and it's not extending. So I don't want to trade from the inside out. I want to trade from the highs or the lows. In the early stages of this dropping in this area here, I'm thinking I'd rather be selling the highs. That's the first indication. Let's take a look at the NASDAQ though. When we look at the NASDAQ's internals, one of the things we can see is again this drop down into this area, but it's not as strong because, well, when this was happening it was as strong, but we had a little bit of upside pressure here. Something to look at when you're looking at these elements. Let's take a look at the dividend rotations. Let's see what the dividend rotations were telling us in the early stages of this morning's business. They were relatively bullish, weren't they, initially? Relatively bullish. Now let's take a look at the specialists. Because the specialists are obviously the guys that are right on the numbers. These guys are the guys that are trying to price this properly at the open. There it is there. So in the early stages, these guys were actually bearish. Then they went bullish. And then they went bearish. In other words, they just traded fair value. They simply just traded fair value. The opportunity to trade fair value is pretty slim. So what are you going to do about it? Nothing. Nothing. You simply walk away and you wait for a better trade. And obviously you're left kind of almost having to try and chase this, but see if you have to chase it. Probably the only way you can do that is to do your RGLs, the concept, sorry, of your interns exercise, the BSG squeezes. But you simply haven't got many other choices. It's the only trade that was possible for that sell-off. And if you didn't get it, guess what, guys? Just join the club with an awful lot of other people in the world. You simply don't get upset by it. You don't get panicked by it. You don't start doing silly things. You just pick the right fight to be involved in. That's all you have to ever do as a trader, guys. Pick the right fight with the best probability. If you miss it, go and have a coffee break. Seriously, go and have a coffee break. It's not your fight. You're not in it. Don't try and get into it unless you know what you're doing with the interns exercise. It is trading fair value, so the momentum is value for us. The momentum is shifting to the sell side. And as a result, you can start doing your interns exercise. You can start the process of trying to be involved in the sell-off part of the trade. There isn't any buyable opportunities. The value is very bearish. There is no buy. We just let it run through. We let it run through, guys. And as I said, that's nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that at all. You see the short value really kicks off here in terms of market internals. And then into the bottom edges, still not a lot of value for a buy reversal. You can see that quite clearly. Still not a lot of value for a buy reversal. And then into the next bottom edge, you can start seeing some interest from a couple of parties in these lower prices. But again, not a lot of value. So what do you do when you've got not a lot of value? You do nothing. You do nothing. We've got higher highs here. We've got higher highs here. We've got higher highs here. So now during this phase here, you're thinking to yourself, I like the idea of buying into this on pullbacks. You look to see where the next blue line is. You draw a box and you look for a possible buy in that area. If you're looking for that trade, this might be your first trade of the morning. Right there. You see it? You see it? You don't have to chase the markets about, guys. It's not your job to chase the markets about. Your job is to trade when the odds and the probabilities are with you, not just to do business. When the odds and the probabilities are with you. And the takeaway has been fantastic. You've traded, say, zeros, 98s up to 10s. That's a $500 winner. Remember, this is a 5-second chart. And you're simply waiting for the right time to take your shot. Nothing wrong with that, guys. The sell on our bonds is doing very well for myself. I think was Michael and Rennie on board this one, or was it? Oil, not sure. Anyway, sell side business on bonds at 30s. It's coming down to retest the 16s now. Quite like it. Elements that are still relatively bearish, but I wouldn't be too shy about taking your first profit into this 16 price area. Just take your first profit. Make sure you've put some money in your bank account. Oil, that's doing very well for us now, guys. Very well indeed. We took our target price into this 107s. It's pulled back beautifully. 60s, not quite the half back 50. That would have been fantastic news if we could get a half back 50 in here. So it didn't quite trade into that area. And it's now traded 107.60s. That's $1,600 in under an hour. $1,600 in under an hour, guys. So long oil, long equities, short bonds, everything is beautiful in its own way, of course.